Welcome back to the program. So John is still getting some tests done, and he's going to be another week. He is getting better, but he's going to be another week, so I'm going to be flying solo for another week. But here is something that can only be said because President Trump won. The Department of Justice and the FBI officials were left weeping. You heard that correctly. Weeping and sobbing and crying at their desks when they figured out and found out that President Trump won the election. Why? Because they know how many crimes they have committed, and they know that they are now going to be targeted. And targeted they will. Listen to this. This is from NBC News, so it is left-leaning, but you need to see this. Department of Justice and FBI officials reach out to lawyers as potential Trump revenge prosecutions loom. Again, NBC News, so that's why the title is what it is. Legal experts say that Trump's choice for Attorney General Matt Gaetz signifies that the president-elect's determination to rightly control the Justice Department and prosecute his adversaries is likely to continue. Multiple current and former senior Justice Department officials and FBI officials as well have begun reaching out to criminal defense attorneys in anticipation of being criminally investigated themselves by the Trump Department of Justice, according to 3 people with knowledge of these deliberations. Following President Trump's decisive mandate and landslide victory, many Justice Department officials and career staffers were already nervous about the possibility that they would become targets of President Trump. However, when Matt Gaetz, a quote, firebrand Trump ally, was nominated to be the Attorney General, this immediately set off the alarm bells, and it made these folks immediately reach out to criminal defense attorneys. Everything we did was above board, said a former senior FBI official who has started contacting lawyers because he expects to be prosecuted himself. Well, you wouldn't be reaching out to defense attorneys if you were, quote, doing everything above board. You clearly were not, and President Trump and Matt Gaetz are going to make sure that you are indeed prosecuted. So you can hire whatever defense attorney you want. It's not going to do you any good, okay? Because there are so many infractions, felonies, misdemeanors, things that you've done, lying, perjury, obstruction, malfeasance, due process rights violations under color of law, prosecutorial misconduct, malicious prosecution. The list is endless. The list is endless of how many things that these people have done wrong. And these are real crimes, not like the bullshit that you made up with President Trump. The official who spoke on the condition of anonymity, out of fear of becoming even more of a larger target, doesn't believe any attempt to prosecute him will be successful. Judges and juries have the power to throw out cases or find defendants innocent if they deem prosecutions to be baseless. They're not going to be baseless, number one. And number two, Attorney General Matt Gaetz is not going to prosecute you if he doesn't already know that he can get a conviction. Okay? So, trust me, you're going to be prosecuted and you're going to be convicted. So you either need to leave the United States of America and go to a country that doesn't have an extradition treaty, or you can run, but you can't hide. Because these crooked bastards in the Department of Justice and the FBI, we're all going to hunt you down. You are now going to be the hunted, okay? You are our prey. And in particular, Matt Gaetz and Department of Justice's prey. So this is wonderful, wonderful news. Let's see. But like many other current and former Justice Department officials, this person is bracing for a potentially long and costly legal battle, as well as the possibility of protracted congressional investigations after President Trump takes office this January. Career FBI employees are especially vulnerable, the office added, since they make less money and they would be in the private sector. They rely on the pensions that they receive after 20 years. Well, wouldn't that be wonderful to be convicted indicted, convicted, jailed, and then, of course, bye-bye pension. See you later, pension. Take flight, pension, because the pension's gone at that point, because they'll just sue and make sure that it's gone. If you're a convicted felon, you don't get your pension. Okay, that's just the way it works. The former senior Justice Department official who served during Trump's first term said he too saw Gates' nomination as a sign of the seriousness of the president-elect's vow to exact revenge on those who investigated him. He needs to be able to control the department, which he can do through a loyal attorney general beholden to him, the former Justice Department official said. Gates, who was the subject of other investigations, blah, 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 NBC News, it's all garbage, it's all bullshit, it doesn't matter. Trump is confident that Gates will do whatever Trump tells him to do, according to this official. Trump and his supporters have consistently argued that all of the criminal investigations against him have been politically motivated. Yes, they have. Every single one of them has. President Trump is innocent, and he hasn't done anything wrong. And I think the American people understood that. They know that, which is why they overwhelmingly voted to support him. Okay? If they thought that he was a, quote, convicted felon, like the left was hoping and praying, oh, let's just get a conviction on him so we can run, that we're running against a convicted felon. Yeah. Meanwhile, you've got people saying, I'll take the hillbilly and the convict instead of Heels Up Headboard Harris. It didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is because everybody knew what was happening. They could see through it. They could see through the lies. They could see through the deception. And they could see the two-tier, million-tier, trillion-tier justice system at play here. And they said to themselves, well, wait a minute. If they're going to do it to President Trump, well, then they could probably do it to all of us as well. And what does President Trump always say? They're not after him. They're after us. He's just in the way. Well, now he certainly is in the way. He's in the way in a big way, and he's going to make sure that this two-tier justice system no longer exists when he's done with it. And then it says, weeks before Election Day, Stephen Chung, a spokesperson for Trump, called for the January 6 charges and all federal and state criminal charges against President Trump to be dropped. This entire case is a sham and a partisan, unconstitutional witch hunt that should be dismissed entirely, as should all of the remaining Democrat hoaxes, Chung said. Legal experts say that President Trump's goal in investigating his investigators is simple: intimidate anyone who dares to probe Trump's conduct. Trump aims to neutralize sources of power that may impede him, said Stephen Gillers, an ethics professor at NYU Law School. That includes the law and legal institutions. He will tolerate no interference when the department decisions will benefit President Trump and his buddies, and when his power can be deployed to retaliate against his enemies. Shock inside the Department of Justice. Justice Department officials, including Attorney General Merrick Garland, were shocked by President Trump's decisive election win. For the last 4 years, Garland has argued that strictly following post-Watergate norms that require the Justice Department to work in a nonpartisan manner in criminal investigations would restore public trust in the Justice Department. The problem here is it was partisan. The whole thing was partisan. You couldn't beat them. You couldn't beat them in the arena of ideas. You couldn't fill up stadiums. You couldn't get the love from the people that the people have for President Trump. Then you tried your Russia garbage. That didn't work. Then you tried impeachment 1. That didn't work. You tried impeachment 2. That didn't work. Then you said, okay, well, if we can't beat him, then we'll just figure out a way to set him up, entrap him, and file litigation and bullshit charges against him, and then we'll try to jail him. And if we can't jail him, then I guess we'll try to take him out. But that didn't work, thank God, either. And now, justice is coming. Payback is going to be a bitch. And it's going to be hitting hard against these folks. And that's why they fear Matt Gaetz. That's why they sat there weeping like little babies at their desk. Because they know the jig is up and they know what they did. And Matt Gaetz is going to expose it all. So that's good. Next. I'm so confident of this that don't believe just me. You can also believe Vivek Ramaswamy and what he's planning to do with the Department of Government Efficiency. So you're going to have the Attorney General's office doing what they're going to be doing. They're going to have lists, okay? And I can assure you right now, Congress is putting together lists. Matt probably told Jim Jordan and the rest of the caucus and said, look, everything we've investigated the last 4 years, I want you to put it all in a nice, neat little binder, put it all together, put everything and give it to me so that when I am either confirmed or recess appointed to the position of Attorney General, I will go to work and I will hold all these people accountable. So I can assure you that's what's happening right now. But on the flip side of that, government efficiency, okay? As I said before, some of this is not going to get done because you have the purse strings of Congress, right? The House of Representatives, we do not have a very big, robust lead. We're looking at 6-7 seats tops right now. But there are certain things that can be done through executive action. Vivek Ramaswamy understands that. He was talking to Maria Bartiromo on Sunday Morning Futures, and this is what he had to say, which is really, really cool.
First is we want to go right in through executive action to do the failures of the executive branch that need to be addressed. Because the dirty little secret right now, Maria, is the people we elect to run the government, they're not the ones who actually run the government. It's the unelected bureaucrats in the administrative state that was created through
Now, let me stop right there, okay? In, shameless plug, Preserving Liberty, I talk about and suggest that we need to have a new rule or new law or legislation that basically says that an incoming administration, doesn't matter which party, an incoming administration is allowed to take the people that are entrenched in Washington and put every single one of them from the prior administration on notice that they have 30 days to reapply for their jobs. They meet with the transition team. The transition team can then go through and interview all these people, and the ones that they don't want to hire, they fire, and they're gone forever. You change the Schedule F. I talk about that in the book as well. You change Schedule F back after Biden turned it the opposite way to protect the administrative class. We can change it right back with a Schedule F executive action, which then changes their designation so that they can be fired, and you don't have to worry about the Carter era Civil Service Rights Act, because that then is a moot point. Then what do you do after that? You put these people on notice that they have 30 days to reapply for their jobs, and at that point, then the Trump transition team in this case would decide who's going to be hired and who's going to be fired. I talk about that in Preserving Liberty. But listen to what he says here, because this is very interesting.
That was created through executive action. It's going to be fixed through executive action. Think about the Supreme Court's environment over...
He's talking about Schedule F, what I just said.
The last several years. They've held that many of those regulations are unconstitutional at a large scale. Rescind those regulations, pull those regs back, and then that gives us the industrial logic to then downsize the size of that administrative state. And the beauty of all of this is that can be achieved just through executive action without Congress.
Without Congress. Did you hear that? All of this can be done through executive action without congressional approval. So that means you change to Schedule F immediately on day one. I guarantee you there's already an executive order written at Mar-a-Lago waiting to come, okay, to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue on that in particular. And then once that happens, they're going to do another executive order that's going to create the Commission of Department of Government Efficiency that will be done through executive action. It's not going to be law, and it'll be temporary. These people will then run it, Elon, Vivek, and how many other volunteers and things like that, and they will literally go through these departments and they will eliminate many of these departments. Okay? Listen, he even says it right here.
Action without Congress. Score some early wins, and then you look at those bigger portions of the federal budget that need to be addressed one by one. So I think that's one way to think about this is how can the President of the United States, who's been elected with a historic mandate, actually do the thing that the voters have voted for? They haven't voted for incremental change here this time, Maria. We have voted for sweeping change, and the voters actually deserve to get it. And we're focused on how to do that as early and as quickly as possible.
Okay, now, you heard that. Now listen to this. This is what I'm talking about when I said that they're going to eliminate actual agencies of the government.
Are you expecting to close down entire agencies, like President Trump has talked about the Department of Education, for example? Are you going to be closing down departments?
We expect mass reductions. We expect certain agencies to be deleted outright. We expect mass reductions in
We expect certain agencies to be deleted outright. Let me repeat that so you can hear it.
We expect certain agencies to be deleted outright. We expect mass reductions in force in areas of the federal government that are bloated. We expect massive cuts among federal contractors and others who are overbilling the federal government. So yes, we expect all of the above. And I think people will be surprised by, how quickly we're able to move with some of those changes, given the legal backdrop the Supreme Court has given us.
Are you expecting to close down?
What he said there is important at the very end. He said, given what the Supreme Court as a legal background has given us, okay? I want you to listen to that part real close, and I'll explain in a second what it means.
All of the above, and I think people will be surprised by, how quickly we're able to move with some of those changes, given the legal backdrop the Supreme Court has given us.
The legal backdrop the Supreme Court has given us. What is Vivek talking about? The Chevron doctrine. That's what he's talking about. The Supreme Court overturned Chevron USA versus, I forget the name of the company. There's another company that was part of it. Natural Resources Defense Council Incorporated. Now, what was this? Okay, so the Chevron doctrine was basically a guide, okay? When there was a dispute between a government agency and a private sector business, they erred on the side of caution and they punted the responsibility back to the government agency. So the government agency then had more control over the private sector, okay? So what it basically means is the Chevron doctrine established by the Supreme Court in 1984 case Chevron USA Incorporated versus Natural Resources Defense Council held that when a law is ambiguous, meaning we're not really sure what the law was supposed to mean. Is it supposed to favor the government agency? Is it supposed to favor the private sector? We're just not sure. So because of that, we're going to defer to the government agency to make the decision. That is no longer. So what does that mean? That means that these government agencies can no longer fight back against it. That's what it means. So then it says, held that when a law is ambiguous, courts should defer to an agency's interpretation of that law as long as the agency's interpretation is reasonable. This doctrine gave executive agencies considerable latitude in interpreting and implementing statutes, particularly in areas of complex regulation. So what it basically means is before, something like Doge wouldn't even really be possible, because the agencies would have had the upper hand. And if someone would have went in as an efficiency expert and said, hey, sorry, we're cutting your departments, we're cutting this, we're cutting that, they would go, sorry, I don't agree with you. And the Chevron doctrine says, I don't have to. But the Supreme Court killed the Chevron doctrine, thus making this possible. So that's when he said, to the backdrop of what the Supreme Court has given us. That is what he means. So what does this mean ultimately? It means that we are going to cut a lot of these agencies and a lot of these people. And that should have everybody smiling and jumping up and down for joy. Okay? And honestly, what he should do, he should fill out his cabinet, do what he's doing, fill out the cabinet, purposely leave the Department of Education empty. And then when the media says, Mr. President, we've noticed that you filled out every position in your cabinet, but we noticed that you don't have a Department of Education secretary. Who do you have in mind for that position? And President Trump could look directly at that prostitute in the media and go, actually, nobody. And they're going to go, what do you mean, nobody? You got to have someone. No, actually, we're not. We're going to leave the building completely empty after we fire every single employee at the Department of Education, and then we're going to padlock it, and we're going to leave it vacant for the next 4 years. Let that sink in. Let's see the look on the media person's face when President Trump says something like that, and I hope and pray that he does, because we don't need a Department of Education. And quite frankly, we don't need a department of a lot of these things. So hopefully a lot of these agencies are going to go bye-bye, okay? So we'll see what happens. Last thing I wanted to talk about was this. President Trump, I talked about this yesterday. Could we be seeing an end possibly to censorship in this country against conservatives? Gosh, I hope so. Because President Trump has now announced that Brendan Carr, as I talked about yesterday, is now the chairman of the FCC. He was the senior Republican leader on the commission, but now he's been nominated to be the FCC chairman. And from what I can tell, this guy believes in freedom of speech. From President Trump on Truth Social. I am pleased to announce that Commissioner Brendan Carr will be the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC. Commissioner Carr currently serves as a senior Republican member on the FCC. Before that, he was the agency's general counsel. I first nominated Commissioner Carr to the FCC in 2017, and he has been confirmed unanimously by the United States Senate 3 separate occasions. Commissioner Carr is a warrior for free speech. This is President Trump now. A warrior for free speech, and has fought against the regulatory lawfare that has stifled Americans' freedoms and held back our economy. He will end the regulatory onslaught that has been crippling America's job creators and innovators and ensure that the FCC delivers for rural America. Commissioner Carr has served at the FCC since 2012, including as an advisor to then FCC Chairman Ajit Pai. Earlier in his career, Commissioner Carr worked as an attorney specializing in an appellate litigation and regulatory matter. Previously, Commissioner Carr clerked on the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit and Judge Dennis Shedd. After attending Georgetown University for his undergraduate degree, Commissioner Carr earned his jurisdiction for doctorate, magna cum laude, from the Catholic University of America's Columbus School of Law, where he served as the editor of the Catholic University Law Review. Congratulations to Chairman Brendan Carr on a job well done. Lead us into a great future, Brandon. So, I might be able to get my YouTube channels back eventually anyway. So YouTube, you can suck it, okay? Because I've asked for appeals and you've denied me for 4 years, and I'm not going to ask anymore. I'm going to wait for Commissioner Carr to change the rules of the FCC guidelines, which will force you left-leaning social media companies to let people like me back on, God willing. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one.